I was engrossed in breaking news on television when my wife arrived home late from work. "Boyd, you'll never guess who hired me to represent them today," she exclaimed. "David Bridges," I replied without hesitation. "How did you know?" she asked, surprised. "You're on the news," I gestured toward the TV on the wall. She glanced at the screen, where an older picture of her adorned the report, pulled from the firm's website. She had joined David Bridges' team of lawyers, the latest addition to his esteemed lineup. It wasn't unexpected. She had been one of the country's top celebrity defense attorneys before I urged her to scale back her workload. I wasn't against her career, I just wanted more time together. 2 years had passed since then. Today, she was defending a senator accused of murder, a case I felt certain he was guilty of, and I suspected she shared my doubts. Yet, she meticulously scrutinized every detail, hoping to find a loophole. She managed to secure a hung jury, prompting the DA to opt against a retrial, much to the nation's surprise. On the third day of her exhausting trial stint, I served her with divorce papers. When she asked what she could do to salvage our relationship, I urged her to quit her job. Despite our wealth, earned partly from her clients and my successful career as a radio talk show host, our priorities had shifted. We wanted to start a family. As she watched the pundits dissect her client's case, I cradled our son, Mikey. The term "get him off" bothered me, it sounded too suggestive. While I never suspected her of infidelity, her devotion to work often strained our relationship. Her transition to consulting made her a sought-after legal expert on TV talk shows, a role she relished. But as we watched her on screen, I couldn't hide my frustration. "Are you upset?" she inquired during the commercial break. "What do you think?" I grumbled. "Mikey needs changing." I took my son to his room, leaving her unsure of how to respond. It was satisfying to keep her guessing. She thrived on control, but I enjoyed throwing her off balance. She trailed after me as I tended to our son, saying, "It's different this time. I'm just part of the team, not in charge." "Sure," I replied noncommittally, focusing on Mikey. "There you go, buddy. All clean and dry." Mikey chuckled as I tickled him, brightening my mood. I blew a raspberry on his belly, eliciting even more giggles. "It's just a tax evasion case," she insisted as we returned to the family room. "Of course," I muttered, walking past her. "You're overreacting," she protested. "No, I don't think so," I retorted, feeling like a child. "This could be a big opportunity for us. The exposure alone." "Not us," I interjected sharply, placing Mikey in his playpen. "What do you mean?" "Not us, Alicia. This benefits you." "I have a feeling it will be the end of us," I stated firmly. "Bullshit," she exclaimed. I shook my head, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. "Your dinner's in the oven." "I'm going to the lounge." David Bridges, the former governor of our state, faced a barrage of allegations when he announced his presidential bid. The charges, including tax evasion and election interference, promised a high-profile trial. It intrigued me, but I dreaded my wife returning to her demanding legal career. At the cigar lounge, I found solace in a quiet corner, accepting a generous pour of scotch from a familiar face. I mulled over my reaction, realizing I had valid concerns. I had insisted on her quitting after she worked tirelessly on past cases. It wasn't an unreasonable request given our desire for a family. Her decision to take on another significant trial without consulting me felt like a betrayal I hadn't anticipated. I might have considered saying yes if she had asked, though probably not. Still, I would have appreciated being consulted. My attention shifted to the TV across the room. There was Alicia, beaming with a big smile, appearing on TV again. I recognized the painting behind her and knew she was in our living room. I silently hoped Mikey would start crying. She charmed the hosts effortlessly, skillfully evading their probing questions while maintaining an air of cooperation. It was impressive to watch. Then, to my surprise, the host, a golfing buddy of mine, posed a pointed question: "Will your husband be refiling the divorce paperwork?" I couldn't help but send him a text, promising a bottle of Pappy Van Winkle for his ambush. Alicia was taken aback, and I relished the moment. Excuse me, she retorted, clearly flustered. No, he isn't, I interjected, causing knowing chuckles from those who recognized me as her husband. Moments later, my phone rang. It was Dana Collins from the Times, seeking my reaction. I deflected with a statement, claiming to be blindsided by the situation. Dana was ambitious and attractive, and I had helped her career as a favor to her boss. It was a mutually beneficial arrangement. Ignoring the persistent buzzing of my phone, I silenced it. The media frenzy was escalating, especially since I was part of the industry. They were ruthless vultures, feeding on any hint of scandal. Later that night, Alicia greeted me in our bedroom, looking alluring in a black satin nightgown. Despite her enticing appearance, I remained firm. It doesn't matter if things are different now, I replied, avoiding eye contact. You know what's at stake. It's different with Mikey, she argued. I scoffed. Having a son won't change my desire for a wife who prioritizes our family over her career. If you revert back to your old ways, you're out the door. Darling, we're letting this escalate too much. I don't want us to fight, I pleaded. Alicia, we should have discussed this before you took the job. Now we're dealing with the fallout, I replied firmly. We'll be okay, you'll see. Now, come to bed. I want to show you how much I love you, she urged, attempting to change the subject. I knew she'd be upset when she saw my comments in the Times the next day, but I decided to enjoy the moment with my sexy wife while I still could. She knelt before me, teasing about the nightgown as she took me into her mouth, pretending to enjoy it despite her dislike for blowjobs. I need you inside me, she whispered, eager to move on to what she preferred. As we made love, her passion matched mine, and we lost ourselves in the intensity of the moment. She demanded more, urging me on until we both reached a satisfying climax. Afterward, she expressed her love, but I couldn't help wondering how she'd feel in the morning. The next day, her anger was palpable as soon as I entered the kitchen. You blindsided me, she accused, her voice filled with fury. It's the truth, I defended, unfazed. You didn't have to tell them that, she argued, frustration evident in her tone. It's done, I replied with a shrug. This is going to be the story all day, Boyd, she lamented. At least they won't be talking about your client for a change, I retorted, attempting to lighten the mood with a hint of sarcasm. I gave her a peck on the cheek before deciding to grab coffee and breakfast on my way to work, hoping to avoid further confrontation. I couldn't help but wonder how soon she'd return to her marathon workdays. We're not finished discussing this, she yelled after me, her voice echoing in my mind as I made my way to the studio. Upon arriving, I found the studio in chaos. My team was bustling around, dealing with the influx of calls and messages. Phones are blowing up today, Boyd, Missy remarked as I handed her a coffee. Turn off the ringer and let them go to voicemail. We'll sort through them later, I instructed, trying to ease the frenzy. In my office, Rose, my producer, was waiting for me. Having a good morning? She asked. Just peachy, I replied dryly. What's on the agenda? It's hard to avoid the Bridges story today, especially with your connection, she remarked. I'm not involved, my wife is, I clarified. Same thing, she retorted. Get Dana Collins on the show. We'll discuss it, but make it clear it's not an interview, I instructed. Yeah, she seems to have it out for your wife, Rose commented. Nah, she's just got a crush on me. I use it to my advantage, I joked. Don't lead her on, Boyd, Rose warned. Hey, never underestimate a farmer's daughter, I chuckled. All right, you're live in 5, Rose announced as the countdown began. As the show started, I greeted Dana Collins from the Times, who seemed eager to discuss my wife's involvement with Bridges' legal team. Yeah, my wife's joined as a jury consultant. She's not representing clients in court anymore, I explained. Jury consultant? Is that what she told you? Dana questioned, a hint of mischief in her tone. I brushed off the comment, unfazed by her attempt to stir the pot. I don't really care what unnamed sources say. I never use them, I stated matter-of-factly, trying to steer the conversation back on track. That's because you rely on stories like mine to fill your radio show with content, Dana retorted, a hint of amusement in her voice. Whoa! I interjected, feeling defensive. I'm not a journalist, and I never claimed to be. I'm just the host of a show where I share opinions on the day's news. Dana smirked. And today's news is that your wife came out of retirement and lied to you. Let's take some calls, I quickly redirected, realizing I was losing control of the conversation. Line 1, go, I instructed, trying to avoid glancing at Dana as she crossed her legs provocatively. I did not lie to you. I'm just a jury consultant, my wife's voice came through the speakers defensively. Well, if it isn't my lovely wife, Alicia. Hi, honey. I'll be home on time today. We're having a pork roast for supper, I chimed in. Hello, Mrs. Baxter, Dana greeted. You know my last name is Taylor, my wife snapped. Right, Mrs. Taylor, Dana corrected herself. Anyway, stop making things up. I'm only on the legal team to help select the jury. So you say, Dana replied. Okay, ladies. That's enough. Alicia, I'll talk to you at home, I intervened. But. Next caller. Well, that was a nightmare, I remarked after the show ended. I thought it went great, Dana said as she slipped her shoes on, teasing me. You owe me, I grumbled. She laughed. How about I take you to dinner? Forget your pork roast. Her look made me uneasy. I'll take a rain check, Dana. See you around. I hurried home, prepared the roast, and waited. As time passed, I fought the urge to call Alicia. Finally, I gave up, turning off the oven and heading out for dinner. A text arrived just as my steak was served. Where are you? I sighed, ignoring the message as I savored my meal. Some things, like a perfectly cooked steak, were worth protecting from unnecessary conflict. 5 minutes later, another text from her popped up, just a question mark. As I savored some creamed spinach, I couldn't help but appreciate how delicious the flavors were that evening. They really nailed it. A couple of minutes later, my phone rang. I let it go to voicemail, knowing it would annoy her. It felt like a small victory in our silent battle. Mature, right? By the time I finished my steak and my wine glass was empty, with the spinach dish cleaned out, a third call came through at 9:30. I ignored it. Pulling into the garage, I found her standing in the doorway, arms folded. I imagined she was upset, so I tried to match her mood with a scowl. Where have you been, and why aren't you answering my calls? She demanded, her voice raised. I chuckled. You know the answers to those. Did you even bother taking the roast out of the oven? Entering the kitchen, I spotted the untouched roast. You didn't eat, figures. What did you have at work? Pizza? Chinese? Chinese. Look, it won't always be like this. I don't care what you were doing, I interjected. I care that you knew I was making dinner, and you didn't call to say you'd be late. I'm sorry. You know how it gets when. She cut herself off, and I finished her sentence. Yeah, I know how it gets. I filed for divorce over it, remember? You always forget you have a husband at home. Now you have a child at home too. Did you even notice Mikey isn't here? I assumed he was with you. Wait, where is he? Now you notice, huh? I retorted. You're a lousy wife when you're on a case, and it turns out you're a lousy mother too. Her slap stung, but I walked away, out of the kitchen and out the front door. She called after me as I made my way to our neighbor's house, where Mikey was being watched. He was asleep in the playpen, undisturbed as I carried him back home. Alicia was quiet as she reached out for him. It's not fair. You should have told me he was next door. I could have spent some time with him when he was awake, she protested. Right, it's not fair, I agreed. But we also have the issue of you not letting me know when you'll be home. I was mad at you. You and that woman were rude when I called your show. Don't do that again, I warned. We need to be on the same page, always. We're supposed to be a team. She lied, Boyd. I'm not the lead on the case. Time will tell, won't it? I'm going to bed, I announced. The next afternoon, Dana caught me in the parking garage after the show. She seemed eager, like Woodward and Bernstein's Deep Throat. Ever hear of James Anderson? She queried. No, should I? I responded. He's the top behavior analyst in the country. Just got hired by David Bridges as a jury consultant. So? I prompted. So, why does your wife need to be involved then? She pressed. What's your angle here, Dana? Seriously. Are you trying to drive a wedge between me and my wife? I retorted. She shrugged, nonchalant. Just asking questions, Boyd. It's what I do. Then ask someone else and leave it out of your story, I snapped before getting into my car, managing to hit my shoulder on the door as I closed it. Smooth. As I drove off, I caught a glimpse of her shimmering nude stockings in the rearview mirror. At 6 o'clock, I fed Mikey and made myself a sandwich from the leftover roast. Alicia was late again, and as usual, no text or call. An hour later, she rushed in, apologizing. I'm sorry, I got tied up and couldn't call. When did you get tied up? I questioned. What do you mean? I mean, you weren't physically restrained, right? You were in a meeting or reading. At any point, you could have texted me. Boyd, I said I was sorry. Sorry doesn't cut it this time, Alicia. Spend time with your son before I put him to bed, I insisted, storming off toward my man cave. I hoped she'd follow, ready for a fight, but she didn't. During halftime of the Thursday night football game, I went to the kitchen. Alicia was there, eating ice cream and reading on her tablet. We need to talk, she declared. There's nothing to talk about. You went back to work and fell into old habits. If you're not lying, you're only supposed to be working on jury selection prep, I stated firmly. She averted her gaze, the first time she didn't deny her dishonesty about her level of involvement. That's it. I won't play second fiddle to your job again. I'll update the divorce papers and refile this week, I concluded. Boyd, we're not getting a divorce. This is different, I keep telling you, Alicia exclaimed. 2 days into the job and already late and no call. Feels like déjà vu, I retorted. It's just the start. Trust me, it'll change. There's a lot to do for the case, she insisted. What's there to catch up on? You're just supposed to help with jury selection, I countered skeptically. You don't understand, Boyd. It's more complex than that, she pleaded. Sure, whatever, I dismissed, turning to leave. But she intercepted me, her hand on my chest. I promise, it'll be different, she pleaded tearfully, pulling me into a hug. Like a fool, I relented, giving her another chance. It lasted 3 days. One Sunday morning, I played with Mikey as Alicia entered. I need to go to the office for a few hours. Back by noon, she informed casually. What about church and breakfast? I questioned with an edge. We'll do lunch instead. That Mexican place in the Arboretum, she suggested, missing my tone. I'll meet you there at noon, I replied, a challenge in my voice. After she left, I waited at the restaurant with Mikey. Half an hour past noon, still no sign of her. The waitress approached, sensing my frustration. Any word from your other party? Just a check, please. My little one's getting antsy, I replied. As I settled the bill, Alicia's text arrived, on my way. Be there in half an hour. I sighed, realizing her habitual tardiness. What am I going to do with her? I muttered to Mikey, who offered no solution. I texted back, I won't be. I switched off my phone, paid the bill, and left with Mikey, determined to take action. Alicia's lies and disrespect couldn't continue. With Mikey in the equation, I was confident I could secure custody. Back home, I set Mikey in the family room, ignoring the ringing house phone as I prepared for the next steps. Looks like someone's eager to play in their playpen, huh? All right, Buddy, I said as I settled Mikey inside, reaching for the ringing phone. Mommy won't be too happy about this, will she? I joked, earning giggles from him as he grabbed his toy. Mikey, remember what they say, never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake. Mommy keeps making them, I mused, hearing only the sound of his toy saying, the cow says, moo. Enjoy yourself, buddy, I grinned, tickling him gently and remembering Robert Plant's words. Does anybody remember laughter? I made a mental note to listen to some Led Zeppelin later. Sitting beside him with a beer, I powered up my phone, seeing missed calls and messages from my wife, all of which I ignored. Dana Collins had texted too, urging me to talk, but I brushed those aside as well. Half an hour later, with Mikey asleep, I intercepted Alicia's impending tirade. Mikey's out, I informed her, nodding towards his slumbering form. He should be in his crib, she noted, and I concurred, allowing her to take him to his room. As she did, I made a decision, slipping out to the cigar lounge. I sat reading about Bridges when Dana appeared behind me. You're not hard to track down, Boyd, she remarked. I'm not hiding, I replied casually as she joined me, showcasing her cigar choice. It was a good one. No, but it's highly recommended, she noted, borrowing my lighter. I couldn't help but admire her bare legs, polished and gleaming. You're too predictable, Boyd, she teased, crossing her legs the other way. Taking a drag from my cigar, I blew smoke in her direction. What's on your mind, Dana? I'm trying to unwind, I deflected. Her expression softened as she delivered the news. I've got some bad news. It's going to be front page tomorrow, but I wanted to tell you first. She pushed her phone across the table, a smirk playing on her lips as I glanced down her blouse. What am I supposed to see? I asked. The video's ready. Just watch, she replied, taking a puff from her cigar and coughing. As I played the video on her phone, laughter caught in my throat. It showed my wife and David Bridges locked in a kiss in an office. I tossed the phone onto the table, leaning back in my chair. I'm sorry, Boyd. Truly. But it gets worse. Why apologize? You've got the scoop of the year. And since when do you care about collateral damage? I shot back. It's never been this close to me, she whispered. I sighed heavily. You know what's worst about all of this? She shook her head, and I fought back tears, averting my gaze. It didn't even take that asshole a week to get to her. He's sleeping with the other 2 women on his legal team as well, she added. I shrugged, taking another drag. Like that makes a difference. I was heading for divorce anyway. This just seals the deal. A fleeting smile crossed Dana's face before fading. She probably relished the disintegration of my marriage, seeing it as an opportunity to swoop in and counsel me. Send me that video, please, I demanded. I can't, Boyd. The story hasn't. To hell with your story. I exploded, slamming my hand on the table. This is my damn marriage. I rose from my seat, offering a silent apology to the other patrons. Okay, she relented, backing down without a fight. Just don't make it public. I scoffed, heading to my locker and retrieving a bottle of Macallan's 25-year-old single malt. If ever there was a time for a drink, it was now. Pouring 2 generous glasses, I returned to Dana, who took one without asking. I relit my cigar. Thanks, she muttered after a sip, clearly unused to scotch. I never imagined she'd cheat on me. I always believed she wouldn't risk her reputation like that, I confessed. It's him, you know. He's notorious for it. We just couldn't get solid evidence, she explained. No, it's on her. To sleep with him in his office within a week? No, she was looking for it. How'd you get that video anyway? Well, it's illegal to have a camera like that installed, so let's just say it wasn't me, all right? Let's call it an anonymous source and leave it at that, she replied, a hint of mischief in her grin. Fine, whatever, I acquiesced, turning on my phone to save the video to the cloud. A text from Alicia popped up. You need to come home so we can talk. I sighed heavily as I typed my response, no need to talk. We're through. You can be with Bridges all you want now. Enjoy the press tomorrow. Turning off the phone, I observed Dana as she took a long drag from her cigar, a strangely alluring sight. The wife? She inquired. I nodded, taking a sip of my scotch. Told her good luck with the press tomorrow, I replied. She'll think you leaked the story, Dana remarked. You'll testify I wasn't your source, I countered. Tomorrow's going to be rough, she warned. Yeah, I know. I'll just keep doing what I do, kick ass, I quipped. And you're all out of bubblegum? She teased. Impressed you know those old movies, I chuckled. After some more conversation, my cigar finished. If I thought Dana would agree, I'd have ordered more just to keep stealing glances at her, but it was time to leave. Buckle up, Boyd. And I meant it when I said I'm sorry. You don't deserve this, she offered sympathetically. It is what it is. Talk to you later, I guess, I replied, heading out. The next morning, I woke early and switched on the news. The chaos had begun, dominating every channel. After a cup of subpar hotel coffee, I started the shower. I'd bought clothes and toiletries, preparing for an indefinite hotel stay. The warm water was a relief, even with the weak pressure, water pressure was the least of my worries. Once showered, I braced myself and checked my phone, ignoring the flood of texts. I messaged Rose, no live show today. Find a guest host or play a recording. She replied with a sympathetic note. Ignoring Alicia's calls, I turned up the TV volume. The news anchor announced, following the Times report on David Bridges' affair with his lawyer, Alicia Taylor, graphic video footage has emerged. Viewer discretion is advised. Watching the footage, I felt a mix of anger and betrayal. Glancing at Alicia's texts, I saw her denial shift overnight. From "what are you talking about" to "we're not having an affair," her tone changed drastically. She even claimed it was just a kiss. A mistake. I shook my head and replied firmly, "There's more on that video. You're busted, and we're done." Her relentless calls went unanswered as I muted the phone and tuned into the pundits dissecting Bridges' alleged affairs. Surprisingly, they focused more on him than on my soon-to-be ex, which was a slight relief. I hoped the less her name was mentioned, the less mine would be. Voicemails piled up from Alicia, but they were drowned out by messages from news stations seeking my comment. For a moment, I entertained the idea of appearing on a show to put my side out there, but I quickly dismissed it. Silence seemed like the wiser choice in the long run. I followed the usual protocol of wronged husbands, splitting assets, canceling joint credit cards, and coordinating with my lawyer to file updated papers. Pursuing full custody seemed like the logical next step, given Alicia's absence from home. My emotions were a mix of unease and contentment as I finalized the demise of our hollow marriage. Her prioritization of her career over me, coupled with her infidelity, made the decision easier. Good riddance. Glancing at the home security feed on my phone, I saw Alicia on the couch, tearful and cradling Mikey. I couldn't decipher if her tears were for our failed marriage or her tarnished career. Thoughts of revenge against Bridges crossed my mind, but I dismissed them as futile. His security detail made any retaliation impossible, and I resigned myself to letting karma handle him. Maybe he'd end up with Alicia, now that would be poetic justice. The next day brought more of the same chaos, but I had to host my show. Rose informed me, "Your buddy at the Times says he'll keep your name out of the articles if you let Dana come on the show again." Exasperated, I grumbled, "Are you kidding me? What's the difference? Having her on the show might be worse. I can't avoid discussing her story." Rose countered, "How are you planning to avoid it anyway? It's the biggest story of the year." "It's my show. I can talk about, or not talk about, whatever I want," I retorted, realizing the truth in her words. "Sure," she said with a knowing look. "Until the sponsors start complaining about you being too soft." Acknowledging the reality of radio politics, I relented. "Fine, Dana can come on. But make sure she plays nice. I have a long memory." "If given the chance, she'll be quite pleasant to you, Boyd," Dana teased before walking away, leaving a sense of impending trouble in her wake. Having Dana on the show was always a gamble. I couldn't steer the conversation, and her probing questions often led me where I didn't want to go. An hour later, as I settled into my seat and adjusted my headphones, Dana mirrored my actions with a smile, though her crossed legs added a subtle distraction. I couldn't help but notice the legal pad in front of her. "Is that a list of questions?" I asked, trying to decipher her intentions. She giggled coyly. "Of course not. I wouldn't come prepared with a list," she replied, her tone dripping with mischief. As the countdown to airtime began, she added, "I know more than you now, Boyd. But don't worry, it's all professional." As the intro music faded out, I greeted the audience. "Good afternoon, Radioland. It's your host, Boyd Baxter, and today we're joined in the studio by Dana Collins from The Times. How's it going, Dana?" "Great, Boyd. Thanks for having me," she replied smoothly. As we delved into the topics of the day, Dana's insights were sharp and incisive. We bantered back and forth, injecting humor into the serious discussions. But when the conversation turned to political corruption and power abuse, Dana didn't hold back. "It's guys like David Bridges who think they're untouchable," she remarked, mentioning him casually. My discomfort was palpable, but I let her continue, knowing it was a subject that needed addressing. Dana's knack for navigating sensitive topics with finesse was both impressive and unsettling. She continued, "They're addicted to power and wealth. They thrive on the adulation of their sycophants, who rush to agree with them and praise their supposed brilliance. They preach moral righteousness but indulge in affairs behind closed doors. It's utterly repulsive." "Tell us how you really feel," I chuckled. Sorry if that hit close to home, she softened her tone. "It is what it is. My wife is a cheating adulteress. What can I do except lose money to her and the lawyers?" A fleeting smile crossed her face before she composed herself. "Anyway, let's take a call from Annie on line 6. What's on your mind, Annie?" "Oh, Boyd, I love it when Miss Collins joins your show. You two have such a great rapport," Annie gushed. "I'm like a pinch of salt, Annie. I go well with everything," I quipped. Dana rolled her eyes, but couldn't suppress her smile this time. "Do you have a question, Annie?" I prompted. "Yes, it's a simple one, but for Miss Collins. Do you want to be a mother?" Annie asked innocently. Dana's expression shifted to one of bewilderment, and she threw her hands up in disbelief. "Great question, Annie. Politics and my personal life can be dull. What's your answer, Dana?" Oh, and Annie, you can't see it, but Dana's face is as red as a tomato right now. "I love children," Dana replied, skillfully sidestepping the question like the politicians she often covered. Annie chimed in, "You'd better, because Boyd has that adorable little boy to think about." "Okay," I interjected, wrapping up the call. "Thanks for calling, Annie. We appreciate it. Time to pay some bills. We'll be right back." "Oh, my goodness!" Dana exclaimed. "It's gonna be one of those days," I groaned. Rose gave us a thumbs up, signaling approval of the segment. It probably made for great radio, but I didn't feel particularly great about it. 3 hours later, as I signed off, I remarked, "And that's a wrap for today. See you all tomorrow. Stay classy." The on-air sign dimmed, and I tossed my headphones onto the desk, while Dana neatly hung hers on the hook. "Well, that was something," Dana remarked. "I didn't expect to be grilled by elderly ladies today, that's for sure." "Hey, those elderly ladies are my fan base. I'm big with the senior demographic," I joked. She giggled. "I'm sure they're your loyal supporters." "Careful now. They read newspapers too. They'll scrutinize your comments and letters," I teased. "What was with that question about motherhood, though?" she asked, her tone more serious. "It's a legitimate question, and I noticed you dodged it," I pointed out. She gave me a sidelong glance, her expression shifting to one of sadness. "I can't envision myself as a mother. I adore children, really, but with this job, I don't see how I could make it work." Suddenly, she looked melancholic. "I'm sorry. I'm getting all." "Don't worry about it," I interrupted. "But I will say, kids aren't so bad. I'm heading to pick mine up from daycare now and play with trucks." "How can you stay so composed, Boyd?" Your marriage is falling apart, and you're acting like it's just another day, she marveled. What do you expect me to do? Curl up in a ball and cry? I've got a kid, a job. I need to keep it together so everything else stays intact. I'm putting on a brave face and soldiering on, Dana. What other choice do I have? I don't know. I guess I just thought there would be more emotion. I chuckled. Emotions are for the weak. I didn't truly believe that, and she saw right through it. She touched my cheek, her expression turning somber. Excuse me, Dana. I've got to pick up my kid from daycare. Thanks for being on the show again. Anytime. And remember, if you need anything at all, don't hesitate to call me. She smiled, and I walked away. Life carried on, and a month later, I found myself in my lawyer's office, waiting for Alicia to speak. Boyd, I'm sorry. It was a mistake and... Alicia, I don't want to hear it. If you think our divorce is solely because you slept with that jerk shortly after meeting him, you're mistaken. Easy, my lawyer warned as I grew heated. Look, your affair is a deal-breaker on its own, but it's more than that. You fell back into your old habits from the first time I filed for divorce. You were late, you lied, and you prioritized your job over our marriage and our child. That's not acceptable, and you knew that. That's why you didn't discuss taking the job with me. Boyd, it was just supposed to be jury consulting. Yeah, I heard that. But it wasn't just that, was it? No, I didn't think so. You got sucked back into it. It's like an addiction for you. Frankly, with how quickly you got involved with him, I'm certain you cheated on me before as well. Just sign the papers. I'm being more than fair. I want primary custody, she said tearfully. I laughed, and my attorney intervened. Miss Taylor, that's not an option. There's no scenario where my client gives up primary custody, especially considering your work schedule. A judge will likely agree it's in Michael's best interest. Damn it, Alicia. My investigator says you've been working 14-hour days all week, and you haven't asked to see Mikey since you moved out. Who are you trying to fool? I love him, she whispered. I know you do. But you love your job more. You can see him whenever you want. I'm not going to be unreasonable about it. I love you, Boyd. I really do. Yeah? Could have fooled me, babe. I left the office and later learned she had signed the papers. My marriage was officially over. 6 months later, Alicia had Mikey for the weekend, and I found myself entering the cigar lounge. Sup, Nick? I greeted the owner as I approached the counter. How's it going, Boyd? Your box of Monte Cristo No. 2s arrived. I put it in your locker. Thanks. Is it busy today? Not really, just a few regulars and a new member, a hot chick. Cool, catch you later. I punched in my code and headed to the VIP lounge, greeted by the familiar scent of cedar and cigar smoke. Hi, Boyd. It's been a while, she greeted me as I approached. I smiled and retrieved a second cigar. Hello, Dana. Want to try a Cuban today? I closed my locker and handed her the contraband. Thanks, she replied. I've been sort of keeping tabs on you. You're not doing a very good job of it, I teased. I'm not exactly elusive, and you have all my contact details. She frowned while cutting the end off her cigar. I'm feeling a bit nervous about it. She then retrieved an expensive lighter from her purse and lit the foot of her cigar. I chuckled and blew on the orange ring around the foot of my cigar. What's got you nervous? I wanted to ask you out to dinner. Oh, come on, I laughed. The woman who'd wear short skirts, cross her legs, and dangle her heels to tease me is nervous about asking me out to dinner? That's hard to believe. She shook her head. This is really good. Thank you. I nodded. Boyd, I've never dated much. I haven't had the time. Teasing you was easy. I've never had a problem using sexuality to get what I wanted out of men and sometimes women. I raised my eyebrows in surprise. Stop it, perv. I'm not into women, she clarified. Okay, duly noted, I replied. Look, I'm sticking my neck out here, and I don't want to catch hell for it. Yes, I said simply. She exhaled a puff of white smoke. What? Yes, I'll have dinner with you. You will? She asked, sounding surprised. Seriously? Do you think you're unattractive or something? I teased. No, I don't know. Like I said, I'm not used to dating much. Okay, let's finish these and head over to that little Italian place across the street. After dinner, we were relaxing with a glass of wine on my couch when I asked, So, do you have time for dating now, or am I just a one-night stand for you? She laughed. No, you didn't hear? I'm not with the times anymore. No, I must have missed that. I'm on TV now. You know the show, you've been on it. It's a group of us ladies on a couch with a guy or two. Oh, sure. I love that show. It's like eye candy for us leg enthusiasts. She chuckled. I suppose it can be, although I wore pantsuits twice last week. I would have changed the channel, I joked. We laughed together, and then she asked, You like my legs, huh? Oh, don't start with the whomey act again. You know I adore your legs. What about my feet? She inquired as she turned and placed her feet on my lap. I shrugged and set my wine on the table. You're in jeans and socks today. Not exactly your sexiest attire. I rubbed her foot, eliciting a moan. I didn't expect to see you today. I should have gone home and changed for you. No need for that. Your jeans showcased your butt perfectly. What about my face? Am I pretty? She asked playfully. Nope. You're what we call a butterface. Butterface, she exclaimed. Yeah, you know. Everything looks great, but her face, I teased, trying to lighten the mood. She attempted to pull her feet off of me, but I held on. Don't get mad, I'm just playing. You're a stunning woman. Well, that's a little better, she responded, sipping her wine. Would you hold it against me if I asked you to take me to your bed? No, baby. I won't hold it against you, I'll put it inside of you, I replied playfully. She rolled her eyes and chided, You're killing the mood, Mr. Comedian. Well, I'm going to have to fix that then. Come on, I said, leading her to my bedroom. As she excused herself to use the bathroom, I took the opportunity to check my drawer for condoms and undress. When she emerged from the bathroom, she didn't enter the room but stuck her naked leg out, giving me a tantalizing show. Fuck, I moaned, my cock throbbing in anticipation. She swung around the door as if on a pole, gracefully walking into the room, nude as the day she was born. Her handful of breast stood proudly, with her hard nipples sitting on pink areolae just larger than a $50 coin. Her field of freckles beckoned to me as if I were a sailor staring at the night sky. Her trim crimson bush pointed the way down in a neat landing strip of short curls, and just a hint of her wet lips teased me. Do you approve? She asked. Hell yes. Come here, honey, I beckoned. She had barely made it into the bed before our lips met, our tongues dancing. She tasted like wine, and I sought to lick it all off of her as we made out. My hand roamed down, squeezing her tight ass before sliding a finger down her curls and between her waiting lips. Boyd, she moaned into my mouth as my middle finger slid inside of her tight tunnel. I strummed her clit with my thumb, driving her to a quick first orgasm. It didn't shatter the earth, but she seemed to enjoy it so much that she kissed her way down my body and took my angry hardness into her mouth. Fuck, that's good, I moaned as she took me farther than Alicia ever tried. She moaned, sending a shock to my toes from the vibrations. After a few minutes, I gently pulled her head off me and smiled, time for the main course, sweetie. She smiled, slid up, and kissed me before straddling my hips. You have a really nice dick, Boyd. Let me drive until I get used to you, okay? Of course. Use me, baby. She rolled her eyes and sank down slowly, taking me inch by inch into her tightness. Oh, yeah, she whispered as I stretched her willing walls. so satisfying. When her butt hit my thighs, she let out a deep breath and threw her head back. Her damp hair stuck to her forehead, and she looked as beautiful as I'd ever seen her. Our pelvises ground together, and her clit rubbed against me with every circular motion she made, driving intense pleasure into her. I squeezed her ass with both hands and teased her rear entry, triggering her first orgasm while we were joined together. Boyd, phew, that was nice. But you're never sticking this log back there, she teased. I chuckled and pushed my hips up to meet her as she rocked back and forth, driving herself mad with pleasure. It didn't take much longer of her teasing and rocking before I released into her. Damn, I moaned. Agreed, she said as she fell to my side, snuggling her sweaty face into my chest. I could get used to that. I kissed her forehead and asked, would you like to? What do you mean? I mean, would you like to get used to it? I'm taking applications for a girlfriend, and you'd be the only applicant so far. She rubbed my chest and said, I'd like that very much. I have more free time now. Thinking longer term, I'm ready to be a mom. Good, I answered. But let's start with you being a stepmom first, okay? I laughed, and she playfully slapped my chest. I don't cheat, she whispered. Me either, I said, kissing her head again. With Dana, I think I found a woman who would prioritize her family over her job. Time would tell, but half the fun is finding out. I mean, if we knew what the future held, life would be boring as hell. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to the channel not to miss new videos.